Okay. Probably would have not scanning this. Okay, it looks like we have Shelby and Jessica on the line. Hi guys, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Always really nice to see you all. So we have lots in our packets tonight. I don't know if we will need for our together tonight. But yeah, so just quickly tonight, I wanted to give you an update, as always, where we're going on this project, what we've been doing behind the scenes. If you have some happen with the training of the cover, I hope some of you are excited to kind of hear the thoughts and feedback on that. Since our last CAC meeting was in September, it was right before Future Fest. So yeah, recap Future Fest. And then I wanted to spend some time talking tonight about kind of what this next phase of work is going to look like. That was right. So this project has been 2 phases of evolution. So I just want to detail what that is, talk a little bit about what the plot plan is, what the role of the CC is going to be. Yeah. So we essentially have 3 more meetings after this, through the whole next phase of work. Yeah, start about the process and the schedule and then next steps. Okay. So as I was mentioning, there's a couple different phases. I know you see this all the time. But I just like kind of plugging away at this. But we always kind of start with where are we now and where do we want to go. So all those technical documents that HNA and the EOA, those background documents that help inform kind of where we are now and where we're headed from a data side or point of view. And then also the vision, so the 2050 vision, where do we want to go? And that's kind of the community-oriented. So we marry those 2 things into a series of goals and policies. So how do we get there? Is the question. And then that turns into the comprehensive plan, which, you know, as a document has these components. This vision statement, some key information from reports, and then it is a regulatory document. It was adopted by City Council, so it is an important. It looks simple on this slide, but it's got a lot in it. Okay. Quick project schedule. So yeah, I mentioned 2 phases. So here we were. This took a long time. It was a lot of work and outreach for the community visioning and goal setting, while we were also kind of doing this assessment of current future conditions. And here we are, winter 2023, and we're moving into the comp plan update. So this is where we're going to be actually developing goals and policies, and then developing them as part of the comp plan document. And then the adoption period will likely start next week. And the adoption period is a series of work sessions and hearings, planning commission and city council. And I'll talk a little bit about what these are and what these, but they are kind of targeted outreach to stakeholders for those conversations that we need to have regarding certain policy. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and we'll I'll show you a way more detailed schedule. Okay. I'm navigating 2 things. All right, Future Fest recap. So thanks to Gary and Renee for being there and helping facilitate Future Fest. We had stations all around the room, organized around the 6 themes of the vision statement. And we had note takers and folks that were there kind of engaging in conversation. And essentially the big question was, what are your big ideas? So here's this vision statement, and how do we move the needle? How do we make this happen? So it's kind of an opportunity for us to have more detailed conversations, more one-on-ones with folks, about how we move that needle. I would say, generally that we had a lot of really interesting conversations. It's like not only an opportunity, I think there was a lot of things. It was first an opportunity for people to meet city staff, or to understand what city staff does, and city staff. B, to understand what projects is the city of Sandy working. And then C, have some one-on-one conversations about ideas. There's a lot of words on the screen, but I will say that kind of a more personal reflection or note that I had was I recall a couple of participants coming in with a very kind of rigid set of desires in terms of they had very particular questions that they wanted clarified by very particular people. And they spent the entire evening talking to everyone, and both left with this massive smile on their face, as if they had just completely uncovered all of the secrets of I don't know what. So that was a really rewarding thing. I think there was some kind of education that happened. There was some myth busting that happened. There was some conversation that felt authentic as well. And so, all of these things are just really helpful for communicating ideas and understanding like what we're doing and how it works. So that's kind of my two thoughts and ideas. Love the venue and thought that we had a really great turnout. Derry, I know you've been on planning commission for many, many years, and I'm just curious to know kind of what your thoughts were on the event. And yeah, if anybody has, hey, Jared, if you guys have any personal comments or reflections on how Future Fest went, or what any interesting conversations you got into, or you want to share with the group?
I thought it was great. I thought it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we had a good turnout, I don't know what we were expecting, but we had a good turnout. It would have been a percentage of the city, it was tiny.
Sure. Yeah.
So I kind of went like, man, let's do that again. It was fun for that, and get more people involved. I think I may have spent a good bit of time with a lot of people, which is good. I mean, they get to vent or whatever, and I think the outcome was diffusing a lot of things.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. I was surprised it was only 40 people that you said.
Yeah,
It seemed like a lot. And maybe that was why, because there was all that activity around that. But knowing that we're not going to get a lot of people, especially, a one-off thing. And
yeah.
I assume it's a common thing in the city that you ask for input, you get.
Yeah.
So, but I was pleased on the night. It seemed like so many, and then somehow 40 was like, what?
Yeah.
But then that's so much stuff that's probably happening.
Yeah. It's always tricky. Certainly, cities struggle to gather folks. So any opportunity there where there's kind of a long-standing event where people are already gathering is always really nice to be able to reach folks. I think I said this to city council and had a meeting with them in November, but I thought that the choice of venue was really great. I mean, talk about free built-in childcare is just always such an important thing, and can really make or break someone's ability to participate. So having that available, having food available, honestly, just being in an environment that didn't feel governmental, it felt like a community space, was really nice. So yeah, I very much commend you all as a community having a business like that was so willing to host for free, the city paid essentially for free to the community, was really great. Shelby, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we had a really good turnout. I had some really good conversations with folks, and yeah, I think I heard a little bit, you were saying there were definitely some folks that came with kind of a bone to pick about certain issues, but I feel like they were able to, share that. We had good conversation, and if they weren't at the right station, I was able to point them to a different station, which was really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the turnout was really great, and I think it's really great to have these opportunities where families with kids can come and have some way to engage and yeah, have kids be entertained elsewhere at the same time.
We hear your kids too, that you're in good company. Yeah, thanks, Shelby, for that. Yeah, I appreciate your support at I think it was the economy station. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so what came out of this are more ideas, more feedback. But once again, and as Jerry mentioned just right before we started this meeting, even looking at the raw data from the online survey, which was really geared towards kind of unveiling the vision statement and asking for feedback on it. I mean, people are full of ideas and have all sorts of things to say. And really, this is yet another opportunity for us to continue building a language base, a language bank, and make sure that, whatever kind of goal or policy language we include in the comp plan is reflective of how the community speaks about where they like to live and what they want to see. So it probably all looks like a lot to sift through. It's a hodgepodge of comments and ideas, and it always will be hodgepodge of comments and ideas. But it is always super helpful to kind of take it in, read through it, and it'll start sticking, and it hopefully will come through in the policy work that we do in the next step. In some capacity, it's never going to be a one-to-one per se, but we can always synthesize and identify some key themes. So we'll do the best that we can around that. But that's really, an event like this lends itself to these types of bullet points where we're continuing to build this vocabulary. Yeah. Okay. I guess the next one was comments and reflections, so we'll just do that. Whoop. I guess didn't say, or I meant to just also do a little nod to the online survey. So the online survey was also live for a couple weeks, actually almost about a month or so. And the purpose of the online survey is always to just provide an additional avenue for folks to provide comment if they are able to show it in person. So yeah, there's a lot more there as well. And as Kara keeps saying this, Jerry mentioned earlier, it's definitely hodgepodge. But we also did not get a lot of traction on the online survey this time around. I think we actually only got 10 survey responses, which honestly I would say for this type of survey probably is a little bit more understandable. The visioning survey that we did was open for many months and kind of corresponded to those community conversations and everything else that we were doing. I mean, that got a lot more traction and that makes a lot more sense. So when you have a kind of a survey asking for reflections on a vision statement, it can go in one of the directions. So small piece of the pie, but definitely still pretty important. Always a good opportunity to have some sort of online. Yeah, any final thoughts or reflections on any of the survey responses or notes that we have here? There's a summary of Future Fest in your house.
If you only had 10 respondents, I am impressed with the amount of text they wrote.
Right?
I mean, not just, one big text that in each response, but several. Took time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm not that verbose on online surveys.
Yeah, I honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about those responses. There may have been, folks may have written stuff on comment forms and then gone home and written more stuff in the survey. There's sometimes people just have a lot to say. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of kind of reflection on Future Fest maybe in there.
So this is not the online survey.
If they went from future.
Yeah, like. That's the same.
Yeah. Don't,
Right.
but still,
It's a lot.
they wrote a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice. Yeah, a lot of conversation about the bypass. I think that was a big topic of conversation. We had that board, the TSP, with some maps and some folks that are involved in the transportation systems plan. So I think there was definitely a lot of conversation. I don't know really what direction this is in. I don't know, maybe Shelley can tell us a little bit more about this.
So there has been interest in building a road to the north. I'm sorry, to the south. To alleviate some of the congestion on Highway 26, so the through traffic and going by the house can go a little faster. But in 2019, the city commission basically a feasibility study to see what would it take, how much money would it cost, and what we found is that it would it's pretty cost prohibitive. As far as acquiring the land from private property owners, paying them what the land is worth, and then actually constructing the street. So it's nothing's off the table. It's just a matter of, a city council deciding that it's something we want to prioritize over other projects. And making that. So it's something that we've looked into.
When it got popular traction.
Oh, yeah, people are generally in favor of it, but
People love ordinance.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave like up by, supposedly up by Kelso and go through or something, not that. Kelso.
yeah, around that area. I think I did a couple of alternative possibilities. Yeah,
So it'd be a lot of land, I guess.
it would be a lot of land, a lot of.
Yeah, and there's a general misconception that the bypass would be a city project.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then it would happen fast.
Right, and so a lot of these comments, it's like, and rightfully so, the survey was speaking to the city, so we need to do this. We don't realize that it's city really has my part, it's an ODOT project. City would have to endorse
And the city would have to convince ODOT that this is what they wanted. Yeah, but it's, yes,
the project itself is not, they won't see city of Sandy trucks out there building that road.
it's an extremely, bypasses are very expensive and they take nearly 20 years to build. The Dundee bypass is a great example of the one and only, or like the latest bypass that's finally built in Oregon after about 20 years. A very expensive one, but they are typically very long processes and primarily because of that. So. That would be a really, it would very much change the landscape here. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna move into developing the comprehensive plan. And talking a little bit about what's the content look like, how are we gonna organize it? A couple things. Let's start with the hierarchy of information that's involved in the comp plan. Generally these days, comprehensive plans, since they're planning for a 20-year horizon, they don't get updated all that often. Every 15 years, sometimes every 30 years. Generally, cities will update them when there have been some big changes in the community, massive amounts of growth, something's happened, and they really need to reorganize the framework for them. Other cities will also not overhaul their entire document and maybe just piecemeal updates certain parts or certain sections. So there's a lot of ways to go about this. We've seen kind of recently in the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of interest in doing some visioning work at the beginning of a comprehensive plan. And I would say a lot of that is in response to some pretty significant population growth across the state and in smaller communities. Growth is kind of the forefront of most communities' minds, especially the smaller ones that are really feeling the effects of growth. So visioning is really an opportunity to kind of, okay, let's come together, let's kind of have the conversations with as many people as possible and kind of think about what our future looks like. So the hierarchy of content here in the Sandy comp plan is going to start out with a vision statement, which we've already created. And that's really where a lot of the feedback from the community went into kind of developing this framework for the comp plan. Under the vision comes a goal. Goals are going to also be rather broad. So the vision statement itself is a very broad statement, very broad statement. It's not a mission statement. So there's also some interesting nomenclature. Mission statements are usually a couple sentences. Here in the case of comprehensive plans, visioning work, especially when we do all this outreach, these vision statements tend to be organized around particular topic areas, and they tend to be anywhere from half a page to 2 pages. And for Sandy, it ended up being about 1 page. And so, but yes, the content in it is still pretty high level and broad. But what it does do is it starts identifying or starts kind of creating a framework for the goals that we're going to develop. So there's a couple things to clarify around goals. So there are things called statewide planning goals. And then there are goals like stated, like what we have here on this slide. Oregon's land use system has a series of 19 statewide goals that all communities need to organize their comprehensive plan around. Whether you do that chapter by chapter or you just kind of reference the goal, however you want to do it, you can do it that way, or whatever way. But there are statewide planning goals, but they do not necessarily need to be the same as, for example, this goal in blue. So the goals, though, generally speaking, are just broad statements of purpose that define what the community wants to achieve. So it basically brings the vision kind of one step closer, just a little bit more specific. And also goals are an opportunity for us to identify more specific topic areas. So whereas a vision talks about, community safety or natural hazard mitigation, a goal statement might kind of bring that one step further, where there might be a goal around police and fire, and there might be a goal around I'm not quite sure, but basically just brings the concept that bubbles up through the vision statement just one step further. And then the policy is a clear statement guiding specific course of action for decision makers to achieve a desired goal. So it is even more specific. It is not necessarily measurable like an objective where you say, we will build we will increase the construction of sidewalks by 50%, or, adding some sort of number. That's more of an objective or an evaluation criteria. A policy would be more like, the city will prioritize the extension of sidewalks along Highway 211, something like that. So it is clear, it is specific, but it is not necessarily measurable like an objective or an evaluation criteria might be. But it's also not broad where it's like, we support sidewalks. That's a broad statement, but then the policy just gets a little bit more specific about where, how, and why. So that's the kind of the nesting or the hierarchy of the content. And then what I have here in gray, this action item, those are typically not included in comprehensive plans because action items indicate things that you can ideally check off the list. In a comp plan, if you start checking things off the list, you end up having to just do this whole legislative process for amending your comp plan every time you've like done something. So generally what we suggest is having a comp plan with an associated kind of action plan that is then brought through various departments, and it's essentially a work plan. Various departments put together work plans, they put together budgets, and that can all feed into an action plan. And that's something that can be continually updated. Things can get checked off the list. Budgets can be allocated. So that's kind of how it all sort of marries together. But as you can kind of see, there's like all these various step downs from content or level of detail. And really the action plan is where you start putting budget and numbers to getting things done. And that's where you want to make sure that the action plan really aligns with the policy. But ideally, by the time you're developing policies, you kind of already know what are the action items that we need to get there. Also, an action item or an action plan typically will kind of come after you've developed the comprehensive plans, you've done this comp plan, you have your new policies, then city staff or departments will go and then develop work plans around those new goals and policies. And then on the right-hand side of the slide for the Sandy comp plan, so we have 6 vision themes, so we'll have 6 thematic areas. And we're thinking we'll likely have about 3 to 5 broad goals for each of the vision themes. And then about anywhere from 4 to 10 policies per goal. Implementation strategies for policies as needed are essentially the action items. Which, can generally be separate from the. But that's in terms of like level of detail and information, that's kind of what we're aiming towards. Shelley can maybe refresh our memory, but the current comprehensive plan has how many goals and policies?
That's not totally clear. Okay, it's more, here's the statewide planning goal. That's what it's organized by, statewide planning goals. And then it's kind of a few paragraphs of explanation, and then a couple of not very actionable kind of policy directions.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. We'll get into what the current comp plan looks like. It's always kind of interesting to see like what are we building? What are we currently working with here? So, but yeah, we'll get to that in just the next slide here. Okay, so in terms of these goals for the vision statement, which is essentially the next step here. So in going through each of these 6 vision themes, there's a variety of kind of different topic areas that come up from the vision theme. So for example, community culture talks about a lot of different things in a small amount of space. It talks about diversity, equity, inclusion. It talks about community engagement, urban design, civic amenities. So there's a variety of different topics that it captures. And then here's kind of just a little matrix that shows, okay, what are the statewide planning goals that are applicable to this area that we'll want to make sure that we kind of speak to in this chapter, in this vision. The A and the B connotates where a goal can maybe apply to more than one theme. So for example, citizen involvement is statewide planning goal number 1. And I feel like from the vision statement, at least, citizen involvement very much is spoken to in the community and culture vision theme, but we also speak to it in the growth and our governance and growth management as well. I think there's a line about decision makers and communities making, having conversations about the direction of management. So that's just kind of what the A and the B denotes. So these are proposed topic areas. It's kind of just a skim of what are the key ideas that are captured here. So for governance and growth management, we have topics around urbanization, governance, civic involvement, public safety. Parks, trails, and natural resources is where we talk about parks and recreation. We talk about natural resources and biodiversity. So that'll lend itself well to these goals here, goal 8 and goal 5. Natural hazards and resiliency. So we talk about about natural hazards, resiliency. We also talk about disaster preparedness, and there's also some talk, this is also where we can talk about energy, since energy is also a statewide planning goal. Housing and economy, pretty straightforward, but housing and economy are the topics there, and those are exactly as is in terms of statewide planning goals. We have goal 9, economic development, and goal 10, housing. And then transportation and infrastructure, transportation, water, sewer, stormwater utilities, and then another opportunity to also talk about energy as well. Any questions or thoughts about any of this?
The statewide planning was coming from legislature.
It does, yeah.
But where does the proposed topic area, is that just?
This is us reading through the vision and identifying what the topics are here and then how they can map the statewide goals. Yeah. Generally speaking, would you agree that these are the topic areas? I mean, I know it might mean looking at the statement. Yeah.
Super general.
It is still pretty general, yeah, definitely.
Do you have to address all the statewide goals?
Great question. You do, well, there are a couple of statewide goals that one does not need to address if it does not apply. So there are a couple of statewide planning goals around coastal resources and the Willamette Greenway. So if you are not on the coast, and if you are not along the Willamette River Greenway, then you do not need to address those goals. Same, there's also goal 4 and 5 cultural lands, which means if there are designated forest or agricultural lands within the city limits, you have to address those statewide plans. But if they're not, so yeah, so there are 19 of them, and you'll see kind of this hodgepodge of numbers. Clearly we're missing a couple of them because clearly Sandy does not need to address goals 4, 5, 15, 16, forgot. I should have these memorized, but there's the answer. Yeah. A great question. And then you might also be wondering, like, what do these statewide planning goals? What do they say about citizen involvement, cultural story? We're going, yeah, exactly. There is a handy little sheet. I wish I had included it in your packets, or it's something to look at. Maybe we'll do this at the next Stacy meeting. But there's essentially guidelines, or broad general guidelines asking cities to do some pretty, I would say basic things. But citizen involvement, for example, is ensure you is that allows urbanization, that's an interesting statewide planning goal, but that's really about make sure that you're balancing your land, whether it's housing or and then there's also some interesting information in the goal language. The language for each of these goals are about a page long, and it has a couple of broad statements, and then it has a series of bullet points that says kind of what cities must do in order to achieve this goal. And you are always generally doing them, but it's things like updating your housing needs analysis and having these kind of technical documents in place so that you understand what the data is telling you about your infrastructure, about your economic, your employment lands, about your housing needs, etc. But yeah, it's a lot of information, and pretty much all of the content that's included in those statewide planning goals are baked into city process. So there's never really like examples where a city isn't already like on the pathway or kind of doing what's already stated in the statewide planning goal. Like cities are kind of set up to be responding to these when they manage land use.
And when we have things that come to the planning commission, often in staff report, we have to show
Right.
that we are like the citizen involvement. They're just making a statement of hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Give evidence of impact.
Right. Yeah, Jerry, you'll be the best one to give us kind of the parameters in terms of also developing the comp plan. You know, the planning commission is the body that really uses the comprehensive plan, reviews it to make sure that land use applications are, you know, meeting the ethos of the goals and policies. So, yeah, make sure that it's a useful document and it's, yeah, it provides good guidelines for making decisions. Okay, here was, I meant to link to this, but this is the cover of Sandy's comprehensive land use plan from 1997. Let's all take a moment to appreciate the font. And you'll see that it is organized, and this is the table of contents, so it's organized by goals.
Been on it.
No,
Yeah, well, I was,
It worked perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, the 97.
that's true. I was.
if only we just had some clip art. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so the document is organized by these goals. Some of these, well, these goals are, I call them kind of chapters. Some of these chapters have a lot of content, some of them have very little. Jerry, do you have any kind of thoughts or do you have anything to say about the current comp plan? Is there anything that feels like particularly outdated about it? Just how it's organized or?
I don't have a memorized.
Yeah, I'm sure you have, it's a lot.
Better handle on it.
Yeah, Shannon, what's your opinion of the comp plan?
My take,
What's your hot take?
no one throw anybody under the bus, people who were in charge of planning in 97. I don't know how long you've been on planning commission.
I was there. I wasn't involved in the comprehensive.
Okay. I think what happened was in 97, they did not envision that within 25 years, Sandy would grow to a population of almost 13,000 people.
Right, because how many
It's
people?
about 5,000.
It's about 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there was a lot of, let's plan for 5,000 people and not a lot of, let's plan for this growth that they honestly probably couldn't have predicted in 97. Yeah, I also read it as just like a very technical document, as kind of a, the department probably didn't have the kind of staff capacity to do a lot of, really digging into some of these topics and figuring out how all of the pieces can fit together. And so it's a little kind of superficial, and a little kind of surface level. Yeah.
And it was, now is this what we call the 2040? Or is that?
I think so.
separate
I think this is Sandy 2040.
document?
Yeah.
2040 plan.
Yeah.
And it was based on the adoption of a particular development style, the
Yeah, the village, yeah.
village.
Mhm.
And that drove a lot,
Mhm.
and it hasn't worked out.
Yeah, we should, I don't know very much about that kind of part or piece of history, the village designation and, I don't quite know too much about that, so.
It's a good example of at that time in Sandy's history, the vision, like what we're working on now, was the village concept.
The kind of 20-minute, but what was the village concept? Was it this idea,
Pockets of like very small scale commercial.
20-minute neighborhoods?
Yeah, surrounded by residential and then
Yeah.
another little. pocket.
Yeah, so you could walk to a little grocery store of some
Right.
sort.
But I think they didn't have the capacity to do any kind of in-depth economic analysis to determine, if those particular areas would be attractive to commercial developers.
And they were, because they always brought up a few examples in other places in the state. So it was appealing, it was almost a trendy thing,
Yeah.
and it just never got traction.
Who was city manager? Was it Scott? No, he was later.
No, Scott would have been on, because have to dated with my older son, whose best friend was Scott's son, so
Oh.
he was best man in his wedding, so. And he graduated like 2001,
Hmm,
Scott was around.
okay. Do you know Scott Lazenby? He's a professor at PSU. Is he at PSU?
I don't know, did he?
Wait, Scott
like,
Lazenby? No, Chip, oh, I know Chip Lazenby.
No,
That's a different one.
Scott Lazenby.
He went from here to be the city manager at Lake House.
Yeah.
But he's where we have Sandy Net, so there you go.
Okay, so was Sandy Net something that came out of the comp plan? The current comp
I
plan?
don't think so, I don't think it was even thought of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is what it looks like now. TBD on what it looks like in 8 months from now. So, in terms of kind of what we're starting with, this is actually quite interesting. So the city, Sandy, given the comp plan update, is also doing, as I mentioned, a ton of background work. The city will have, as of 2022, or 2023, it should be 2023 here. But in the next year, Sandy will have brand new transportation system, brand new economic opportunities analysis, housing needs analysis, economic development strategy, and parks and trails master plan. It is not often that you come across a community that is able to update all of these plans, which they themselves have significant processes baked into them, that can fold directly into a comprehensive plan. In a perfect world, the goals and policies of a TSP are folded directly into your comprehensive plan so that there is alignment between all of the various plans, basically so that the comp plan is this umbrella for all of the work that's being done in these specific areas, specific topic areas. So, we are going to do our best in this comp plan to essentially fold right in the work of the TSP, the HNA, the EOA, the Parks and Trails Master Plan, so that there is synergy between all of these different plans. We certainly do the comp plan. None of these documents can contradict one another, and they certainly can't contradict the plan. So this is really an opportunity for us to just make sure that all of these are well aligned. And it is honestly quite exciting when you have a lot of really important work happening at the same time, and they all will happen to be ideally done by the time the comprehensive plan needs to come together. So there's actually a lot of work that has already been done. So part of your package is kind of a snapshot of what that was. The TSP has goals and policies already. They're labeled as goals and objectives. So once again, there's a little bit of just finessing of the nomenclature here. What they call an objective, I definitely would say is a policy statement. There's nothing necessarily very measurable. And the Parks and Trails Master Plan was recently updated in 2021. They have a series of recommendations that they recommend are part of the comp plan. So that's another opportunity to fold in work that was undertaken for that document. And then, of course, the housing needs analysis and economic opportunities analysis. So those are two documents, or they're not documents, they're actually like pretty big undertakings in terms of data analysis. But those are part of the scope for the comprehensive plan process. So those are happening in tandem with our work, and that will result in those policies based on these on the EOA, the HNA for the plans.
We ever had a situation where, given where we are now, where these sort of supporting documents are existing before the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is a big vision. So it seems odd that, here's our vision. Is it possible that these can restrict our vision? See what I'm saying? That our vision is to do all this, and then we look over here at this document, we can't do that. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Let's see, that's where the sinking of them is kind of like, the chicken and the egg thing.
Right.
Which
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that from my review, that's an interesting question. But I will say that the goals and policies are still at a high enough level that I don't often see contradiction in in kind of what is being asked or proposed or recommended.
Could there be overlap?
Certainly you would want overlap.
Or additional,
Say that again.
additional, I guess overlap, not the best word, but additional items to add.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so, you know, what the TSP has, you know, the TSP has goals and policies around things like mobility and connectivity, transit, safety, things like that. That does not need to be the end all be all of transportation as a chapter in the comp plan. But it certainly provides us with a lot of good content and it should be in the comprehensive plan. But yeah, great question. It's not the end of the line necessarily.
Yeah, you could probably say it's highly unlikely that any documents like this, not just the same, but other, would restrict your comprehensive plan if you're doing them a little bit after.
Certainly, and the comprehensive plan is the leading document. So it is going to be the one that directs these and you know, there can definitely be a situation where there are certain policies from the TSP that don't make it into the comprehensive plan. Which can certainly happen if there is a clear divergence between what the TSP says and then what the visioning work and the comprehensive plan direction, where that wants to go, like that, the comp plan is what rules that essentially, and can decide that. I will say, just given how recent these processes have been and just the work that has gone into them at this point in time, I don't see any contradiction or divergence between the vision and what the TSP states. Yeah, at this point. You know, things that the TSP doesn't have, for example, is they don't necessarily make any sort of, they don't have any stance on the bypass, you know, whereas a comp plan could. So that's kind of an example of where you can bring that one stuff to. Yeah. All this to say is that we're starting with a lot of work that has undergone its own very deliberate process, so it's not necessarily starting from scratch. Okay. So quickly on schedule, I realize this is a lot of niche, right? Apologies. So here we are moving into this next round. And so the way this is going to work is we're going to organize, you know, drafting goals and policies. We're going to organize them in blocks. And each block will consist of 2 vision themes. And when I say I should have a glossary, a block, a chapter, a vision, all these things. But yeah, each block will cover 2 vision themes that I'm going to also call chapters. And there will be a process that we go through in each of the blocks. So let me show you what that is. Sure. Hold on. I realize that we had 2 scenarios. I'll show you both of them. What we laid on. So we tried to figure out kind of 2 scenarios. In fact, this is, oops. There we go. About how we wanted to organize this work. The difference is this kind of where and how we're involving planning commission and city council. But essentially the workflow is we start by drafting, the project team is going to start with drafting language. We're going to bring them to the CAC meeting. During the CAC meeting, kind of around the time that we have packets out to you, we have a meeting out, we're also going to be doing some sort of targeted stakeholder engagement. And that could be interviews, that could be focus groups, that could be presentations to various committees around the topic at hand, or if there is a particular policy conversation that needs to be discussed with the Economic Development Committee or Main Street Alliance, or something like that. we're gonna have kind of more targeted conversations, to just delve into the nuances of particular policy direction. For certain topics that we haven't already had conversations for. So as you saw here, we've had a lot of conversations about transportation, we've had a lot of conversations about parks and trails, given these brand new technical documents. But we might not necessarily have had, enough conversations with Economic Development Committee around the EOA. So the kind of more targeted outreach. Based on the feedback that we get from you guys as CEC and through our stakeholder engagement, we're going to go back and revise those draft policies. And then we will present them at a joint planning commission and city council meeting. And then after that, we will finalize the policies and then move on to the next block. When I say final policies, they're not necessarily final. It's more preliminary, draft preliminary content, one round of revisions, and then kind of finalizing the more document, finalizing the language. But then when it does go through the adoption process, that is also another opportunity to just continue to. But that's the flow. And we had kind of two scenarios, when we wanted to meet with the planning commission and city council because they want to be very involved in this process. So as a project team, we landed on scenario 2, but we're actually not going to have a meeting with planning commission and city council before coming to the CEC, but we are going to share the draft policies with them at the same time that we share it with you guys. So everyone will kind of get the information at the same time. So when we come to you, we'll have sent it out to the planning commission, city council, we'll have had their feedback that we can also share with you. So you can kind of let it percolate as you kind of give us more feedback. And then we'll take that and revise them, revise policies and then bring it to the planning commission and city council, let them know kind of what your direction or recommendations were as a community advisory committee, and then finalize them after. Does that kind of process make sense? Every block will probably be a couple of months, I think. I think we'll be able to get through all of these steps in about 3-ish months or 3 months. So it's going to take some time, and we're going to be working on 2 of those vision needs at the same time. So it'll be a lot of content, but it'll hopefully be broken up into chunks where you can spend some time just focusing on specific topics at that time. And then also, the idea of kind of engaging everyone, including planning commission and city council, kind of in each of these blocks, is that by the time we're done with these 3 blocks or 6 vision themes, everyone will have seen everything, and you aren't showing up to adoption hearings being like, whoa, this is the first time I've ever read anything. Where did this come from?
Still some.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of that, but to the extent that we can kind of walk through all of this as a team here, as a CAC, and with the planning commission and city council, that'll just ensure that what we have at the end is reflective of the work that went into it. Any questions? Okay. This is probably not very important slide, and my apologies if it was so small. Basically, this is kind of the overall project schedule for the entire project. This is like an internal project team schedule. It's a little bit more detailed. These red circles are 3 block areas, and here's the process. And you'll see that it runs probably from January until about August, July, probably a little later. And so we have CEC meetings with you all once per block. So I think next year what we'll see is our CAC meetings will be a bit more spaced out. They have been in the last, what has it been, 7 months or so, they've been every other month. Next year we'll probably be every like 2-3 months. So a little bit longer time in between. Because there's a lot going on. Any questions about the schedule or the process or the details? That's it. This so there's one way. The things is this work into doing some natural hazard mitigation planning as part of a comprehensive plan. That was kind of an element that was brought to the forefront by City Council, Planning Commission and staff when the comp plan work kicked off. So as you recall, we are hosting what we're calling the stakeholder workshop around natural hazards. We are working with part of the project team for this project is the GEOS Institute. They're a nonprofit down in and they do a lot of kind of community resilience and natural hazard planning, mitigation planning. And so they are helping staff kind of along the way in developing strategies for hazard mitigation. And part of that is doing this workshop, which all of you as CEC members are more than welcome to attend. It's actually going to be very interesting. The workshop is essentially invites went out to technical experts and stakeholders that work in a variety of different fields that have kind of in-depth knowledge or understanding of particular systems, whether it's Sandy's water system or things like that. But basically bringing them all around the table on Monday, December 12th. It's going to be a full day workshop. It's going to be at the same community center. But basically it's going to be a room full of, technical experts all over talking about what vulnerabilities, what Sandy's vulnerabilities are. And then talking about what are kind of the best ways to approach those vulnerabilities. So as part of this comp plan process scope, there are 2 workshops that are baked into the scope. This is the first one where they're going to be reviewing the vision statement, identifying vulnerabilities. And then the second one is going to happen in the spring of next year, kind of right in the same block where we're developing policies for natural hazards, emergency preparedness, things like that. They will also be meeting for a second stakeholder workshop where they'll be helping craft some of those strategies. So it's kind of a little like offshoot, but like a more in-depth opportunity for more in-depth conversation with folks that are just really involved in this kind of work. So that's going to be really interesting. I know it's during the day, it's on a Monday, everyone's working. But if you are interested and you do have time, you're more than welcome to come sit in on a round table, listen in on the presentation, etc. I don't know if it's going to be recorded. I don't think it's all in person. I think there will be a presentation of a hybrid format, but I'm not sure if we can definitely record the presentation when it happens. So we will be having one person joining us by Zoom, who's going to be doing a part of the presentation. But that's only about like an hour of the entire day. It's going to be a lot of roundtable and breakouts and things like that. So it'll be interesting. Lunch will be provided. I think we'll have about how many attendees? 25 or so?
Yeah, about 25.
25, yeah.
Is it open to the public?
Oh, yeah, anybody who wants to come.
Yeah. But the invites were targeted to folks that kind of represent these various community systems.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give examples of like when I say that, like what are some people that are going to be at the table there?
Yeah, so we have folks from various government agencies like DSL. What does DSL stand for?
Department of State Lands.
Yeah, Department of State Lands, from folks who do a lot of river and wetland and riparian corridor preservation work. We have some folks from the city, from Public Works, from Sandy Net, from transit, from different departments that would be affected by natural hazards. We have some folks from county organizations, some folks from nonprofits, a couple of planning commissioners, at least one city councilor. So just all different kinds of stakeholder groups.
And probably get very nerdy.
Yeah.
There are people that have a lot of in-depth, detailed knowledge about the systems that they work in, which is why we want to have them around the table.
Oh, we also got a couple of students from the Sandy Hook Green Club.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I think it's really important that we have a lot of perspectives coming from both like having a lot of technical knowledge, but also just having a lot of local knowledge from people who have lived in the city or familiar with the city. So being able to capture, even if somebody doesn't work in a super specific field that would be affected by natural hazards, even if they have, you know, a lot of local knowledge about living in Sandy and, you know, they'd be able to point out some vulnerabilities that maybe other people wouldn't be able to point out. Yeah.
Anyways, 2 weeks from now.
Mhm.
10 days.
Yeah, and we got Nicholas here at the Mediterranean place,
Oh, great.
for the Lebanese place.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm so excited for that. I got to pick the food, so I'm.
Yeah, so if you're able to pop in or you want to listen in, it might be an interesting opportunity to learn a little bit and get a little nerdy about some things, so. Okay, and then I guess the last point, 2023 CEC meeting format. As a team, we were curious if you, as a CEC, enjoy the in-person meeting style, or if one would like to move to a hybrid or an online format. We have 3 meetings left. We can certainly do those next 3 meetings via Zoom, if that is helpful or warranted. Or we can continue doing this. I think, you know, we struggle clearly with participation in our CEC meetings, and we don't know if this would be more helpful or less helpful. So just throwing out options and ideas. Yeah, know that not everyone can make it all the time. And I don't know if just making this entirely virtual would be helpful in, you know, being able to attend. Not sure.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people have kind of disappeared, but I don't know if going virtual at this point will bring them back.
They can already go virtual, right?
Totally. Yeah. I like coming to the meeting personally.
Caroling, once every 2 months.
Yeah.
I'm zooming out.
You're zoomed out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I say, you know, they zooming out, we have some tonight, so
We do.
it's always an option.
Yeah.
So we have the best of both worlds right now.
Yeah.
I like that.
I agree, I just saw think about this.
Yeah, I know. I know, it's a lot of, it's can be dry content, sure. Yeah. So I'm hearing a desire. Yeah, we'll talk about the team. Change is bad. Change is bad. We definitely talked about trying to make this, turn this into a Zoom format. But we'll talk again as a team and just figure out if that's in fact really what we want to do. Given what you guys have expressed this evening.
Yeah, about the only way you'd know would be to go to the people that haven't been coming.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can't say, well, had it been on Zoom, would you have been able to attend? The point is, it was on Zoom,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so
very true.
it may be a more of an indication of their buy-in and desire to be involved
Yeah.
than the format.
No, certainly. Yeah, we understand, you know, it's a lot, people's time and energy and, you know, it's, you guys are volunteering and it's, yeah, we understand it can be a lot. You know, Kelly's done a really great job of making phone calls and herding the cats a little bit, but everyone has lives and it's, you know, kids at home and things like that, so we understand that's not always possible. But we do appreciate you taking charge now. If anything, you have a lot more cookies and sandwiches to bring home. Yeah. Speaking of, yeah. Okay. 7:35, and that's all I have. Is there anything else? No. So the next time we'll meet, I have to look at my skip calendar, but it will probably be in like February, I think. And we'll be looking at the draft policies for the first 2 vision themes. I don't recall I don't think they're gonna go in order, because I think there's some vision themes that we want to talk about later on when like the housing needs analysis and economic opportunities analysis. We want to do that. So that it might be a little bit of rearranging of the vision theme, so we don't know what we're going to do first. But we'll probably have some content for you all to review, comment on sometime in February or maybe even early March. So we'll reach out with the date. We're gonna continue the Wednesday evenings, from 6:30 onwards. We might reorganize the format a little bit, but yeah, it just might be a couple of months until we meet again.
Working hard.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes, yeah, for sure. And that process that I showed you, that diagram of like, first we do this, then we revise this, it takes time. People have to read things and revise, and things, you guys need things a little bit in advance, so it all ends up taking a lot of time, so, yeah. We should say that, patience.
Now, are you personally doing this simultaneously with any other municipality?
Yes, I am, but not in the same place. We just recently, next week are gonna be adopting Oregon City's new comprehensive plan. So that was a very long process, but so I'm finishing that.
Well, congratulations on that.
It's not, I mean, it's a lot of people's work, it's not just mine, so, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Take food. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone, who joined us online. How about that, an hour early? That's great.
Jenny, I remember you mentioned different Phoenix. Is that right?
Yeah.
I was there a couple weeks ago.